What is the astral plane? Well, it is not a role-playing game. And when I say that, I am going to go into further detail about what it is that I mean. I heard a term quite a lot whenever I was rejoining the online pagan community in 2013, and that term was UPG, which stood for Unverified Personal Gnosis. Now, sometimes people would say unverified pagan gnosis or unverifiable personal gnosis. People would just typically call it UPG and leave it at that. And what I found was that UPG became the catch-all term to explain away any inconsistencies and any logical lapses in people's spiritual stories. Kind of a band-aid for storytelling almost, which is concerning because spiritual experiences are supposed to be us connecting with forces that are able to understand reality to a degree where they see beyond time. So it's strange to see the need for so many caveats for their work to be correct or effective. I have a favorite Star Trek movie, and it's not going to be the one that you think unless you already know me. It's Star Trek V. The Final Frontier. And most people don't even remember that one or what it was about. It was William Shatner's directorial onesie, I think. And in it, there is a point where an alien being that is largely an energy manifestation and therefore seems somewhat spiritual for quite a lot of the story, basically says, hey, give me your starship, I need it for reasons. And this entity has claimed that it is God. It is actually the God of all of the different living peoples of all of the Federation republics. So all the Klingons, all of the humans, all the Romulans, all of the etceteras. You don't need to know all the different Star Trek types to get what I'm saying. All of the sentient peoples of the universe. They're one deity. Their one deity is on a weird planet in the sort of center of the universe, and it needs a spaceship so it can go out and spread its message. And then Captain Kirk, who's basically played the part of the atheist this entire film, says, what does God need with a starship? And this one line has held with me my entire life. It has been the voice of the devil's advocate in the back of my mind whenever I hear something that's too good to be true. What does God need with a starship sums up everything that's wrong with a situation where a god is supposed to be present but is not displaying any godlike powers. Usually when a god shows up, you have reason to pay attention to it. Now, sometimes the experience will change depending on what type of god, and sometimes there's some sort of challenge where you're supposed to notice it to be able to get some sort of benefit, in which case it may be hidden for that reason. But typically, gods are hard to ignore. It's sort of one of their properties. Whenever you're an absolute force, an absolute absolute anything. Just now, something zoomed on the road behind my domicile, and I was unable to ignore it because the god of transportation, he's going to be able to affect the world no matter what, no matter whether I'm recording a video or not. That's just how it is. I hear the zoom again. It's rather obnoxious, but hey, it's nice to know that Mercury's playing along. So, how is the astral realm not an RPG? Well, first of all, let's talk about UPG again. UPG and RPG are right next to each other. UPG, unverified / unverifiable personal gnosis. Now, the thing is, there are ways to verify that a god is here. Now, do we have a way of verifying that a god's favorite offering is a new type of thing that wasn't available historically to the past societies that have recorded things about this deity? Well, one would simply just use methods of divination that are honored by that deity to test out whether or not these new offerings were suitable. This isn't difficult. It's not difficult to add new knowledge to the canon. Now, is this going to be universally applied knowledge? It depends on what the knowledge becomes. But there are ways of doing things that have emerged in the last 100 years for pagans and witches alike that are entirely new to this century. A lot of different candle magic, for instance, because for the first time, a lot of different colors of candles are available. Those techniques weren't around before now because you couldn't get wax in that color in a candle that plentifully. Like it just wasn't there. So there's always going to be something new that emerges. And there's going to be ways of testing that new knowledge. That means that when a god does something, it's usually not left up to interpretation whether or not the god did something and what the god meant. Gods make themselves clear. So, when it comes to role-playing games, I'm not saying that one can't channel a god or play the part of a god in some sort of ritual theater. Certainly not. Quite a lot of magic and spiritual experience is all about wearing a mask or portraying a role. But when you do this, you're not playing a game. You're not winning points. You're not leveling up some statistical model that will get you some sort of bonus with street cred. We're not really sure what it is that makes role-playing games really do something in your life later on, as it were. Like, what is accomplished. Basically, your astral self, as it were. They don't have a separate experience that experiences a plot line or a storyline where they keep on encountering fantasy creatures and level up their spells and get better weapons and spend a night at an inn and meet a mysterious thief at the bar. We call those dreams. And I'm not saying this to mock anyone. Dream space is a different type of space than astral space. For one, astral means stars. It's star space. it is basically the space between the planets. It is a physical void. Dream space is limitless. It has absolutely nothing about it that has boundary. You can do anything in dream space whatsoever and get away with it, and it's fine. You have no consequences to dream space. You can experience anything that you want in dream space, and whenever you emerge, there won't be any repercussions that stick around with you. There's not going to be a change to your physical form because you experienced something in dream space. This means that dream space is a very powerful place to experience many different events, many different adventures, many different stories, many different lives. But it is a dream. And that makes it separate from waking reality. It makes it separate from physical reality. And it makes it separate from astral reality. The spiritual realm is just the spirit component of the physical realm, which means essentially the parts that move in ways that are responsive to the directions of living beings. It's the living part of the cosmos that moves with us, that exists in a quantum level of space that we can't even sense. This astral component is basically the same stuff that makes up stars. It's the star stuff within us, our own light that we create. Whenever you focus on this spiritual plane, as it were, instead of thinking of it like a plane from Dungeons and Dragons, or a plane like a grid in mathematics, think of plane as short for planet. It is the spiritual planet. It is the spiritual world. It is a parallel to the physical world around you. Now, it does not line up one-to-one, because if it did, you would see it in the physical world. That's why what's in the spiritual world doesn't necessarily have any place that it exists equivalently in the physical world. Because if it did, you would simply just see it in the physical world. You can see the spiritual, you can see the physical manifestation of my cat's spirit. It's called my cat's body. That's easy enough to see. But you can see that because my cat's walking around being a cat. If my cat was spirit only, you wouldn't be able to see my cat. It's just physical reality. There are a lot of experiences you can have in the dream world that are very transformative and educational. What I want to stress is that understanding that they are dreams is a key component to being able to sort those experiences where they belong in your memories. Instead of having to put an asterisk by your experiences and say, well, this is unverified gnosis, this is personal, it's my personal thing, it's my unique special storyline. Instead of having that, just put it in the place where it's always been for all of humanity already, in dreams. Dreams can happen at night, they can happen during the day, they can happen in waking, they can happen in sleeping. They are useful, they are effective, they are magical, they are spiritual, they are human, they are ours. Use them. Dreams are more real than any game you can ever play.